Hello, and welcome to BonkTable. I'm Mass, and this is another Conquest Battle Report. Today, I'm playing 100 Kingdoms versus Spires. It's been a long time since I got to play Spires, and I'm actually really excited to play them. And I had a good time in this battle report, as you'll see, but I am doing tournament prep, and I've decided to bring Horse Lord to it. So if my opponents who watch my battle reports figured it out, I'm playing the Cav list. If they haven't figured it out, well, if they watch the battle reports, they'll figure out that I'm playing the Cav list. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail because it's just, you know, I'm playing the same list over and over again because I got to get ready for an actual event. It's Horse Lord, so I got a Mounted Noble Lord, Oliphane's Roar, Weapon Master, Tip of the Lance. Oliphane's Roar is that +1 clash and terrifying 1 on the charge. Tip of the Lance is when you make a successful charge, you get cleave +1 on all your clash attacks. This Mounted Noble Lord, I always forget that he's actually Brutal Impact 2 and not Brutal Impact 1. And I should start remembering that, because that does matter. He also provides Speed of Horse with +1 impact and rerolling 6s for everybody. Oh, and by everybody I mean just Household Knights, the only people who matter. In his warband, he's got 2 units of Mounted Squires. They're just the MSU of 3 stands. They're veterans for that +1 clash, and they got a Standard Bearer and a Court Palatine, so they always have Inspire. I like them. They just run around really fast and just get in the way and are annoying. Really great light hunters, and anything that's ranged or if you need them to tie up somebody so you don't get shot at, they're great for that. I got my 2 units of Household Knights. I got my big buff bus here with the 5 stands of Household Knights, you know, veterans +1 clash, turning champion, Standard Bearer. So these guys are going to be paired up with the Mounted Noble Lord. They're going to hit like a truck when they finally go in. And then I got my MSU of Household Knights who just have a Standard Bearer. They're really there just to get in the way or become an anvil or like score a zone. That's really their whole job. And majority of the time whenever I play with this list is I actually have those guys go first because I'm looking to score first because I don't need to be there right away. And I have the big buff bus of Household Knights just waiting, kind of delaying them as much as I can because they're going to be a hammer. And if I get all my anvils set up, then they can just hammer through stuff. Next, my other warband, we got the Prior Commander of the Crimson Tower. He's got that first Blessing Supremacy, so everyone in his warband will get blessed when I declare it during the Supremacy phase. And if you already have blessed, Ashen Dawn, you're either going to get +1 attack or Harden +1. I did find out that when you do declare the Supremacy, you have to choose the +1 attack or Harden 1 during the Supremacy step for the Ashen Dawn or for the, basically anyone who's got blessed already. So that was kind of interesting. I don't know how that interacts though with if you have Order of the Sword and you give them blessed from the Theist Priest and then they activate, like does the Supremacy ability go through because now they have 2 instances of blessed? Or does it not matter because you already passed the Supremacy step and they already had blessed, but then you give it to them again, so then it's like, well, it doesn't check for it anymore? That might be something I'll bring up in the rules, like, questionnaire thing on the Discord, just because, like, you know, I'm curious. But the only mastery on this guy is Disorienting Strikes, because I got 10 points left, and it's like, yeah, I might as well make him harder to kill. We got 2 units of Order of the Crimson Tower, they're just MSUs with Standard Bearers, and then I got 2 units of Order of Ashen Dawn, MSUs with Standard Bearers. Order of the Ashen Dawn, canceling their praise as much as I can. Like they're a fantastic unit. Like Clash 4, 6 attack, 6 wounds, 5 resolve, defense 4. They got that bless, cleave 1. They're fearless. They're impact 3, what I always find funny. I think they used to be impact 2, and there's times where I have to check to make sure they're not impact 2. And then they have wedge, so they get able to cleave +1 whenever they make a successful charge. Really good unit. Love them to death. And then we got Order of the Crimson Tower. They're kind of coming around. Maybe I'm just a bad player. Maybe I suck at this game, but they really paired well with the Order of Ashen Dawn, what I've been liking a lot. Because the Order of the Ashen Dawn, I always have come on for my automatically in reinforcement, and I just shove them forward to set that line of engagement, get people caught up, and they can sit there and take a hit for like 2-3 turns before I start to get worried. And that gives Order of the Crimson Tower plenty of time to come onto the table, run up, get there, and then charge from the side or get that charge they need to actually start doing that damage. So yeah, their stock is going a little bit up, but I still don't like them. I cannot like things. It's the Order of the Crimson Tower. So that's really the list. It's not like super complex or anything. It's just a lot of horse. It's fast. People, well, I love it. Other people don't love it. But I'm gonna slow roll my rules, and you can pause the video anytime you want and just read them in more detail. If you got any questions, you can just comment below in the comments, and I'll answer them. I usually get there within like 2 or 3 days, so peek back at some point. Look, wedge right at the bottom, and that's my rules. I hope everyone has a good one for this one. Let's go check out my opponent's list. Here's my opponent's Spires list. They called it Post Challenge 1. Now, I don't believe they updated their list when the points changed during the May update, because when I was playing this game with them, they're like, oh, what do you think of Turn the Tide? I'm like, what do you mean? It's gone. It's like, what? When did it leave? I'm like, dude, check the podcast. We did a whole episode about it. But they're down 60 points, and I didn't catch this during the game because they just put their models on the table, and I said, hey, shoot me your list so I can build it later for the battle report. And he's like, yeah, okay. But I never checked it there because it's just like, well, I'm going to play the game, what's in front of me. So, one of the younger brother of my meta, if you're watching this, I know you don't watch any of this content, but if you do, you were down 60 points and that could have been an extra stand or two. But I did DM you a message in Discord so you know. But with that, he's got his Warlord, the High Clone Executor. This guy's Supremacy ability, where he just draws he just declares it in his Supremacy phase, and then he draws the first 3 cards of his deck, and he just activates them all. Real good. If there is the lineup, like everyone's lined, the lines are about to clash, you want to get that alpha, in a lot of places, fantastic Supremacy ability. If you want to get that setup and secure, lockdown, and destroy something on one flank with a couple units, really good with that Supremacy ability. This is a very strong Supremacy ability, and as an opposing player, you gotta watch out for it. It's like, when is he gonna activate it? When is he gonna do it? Like, his character has to be on the table, so if he's far enough forward and you can kill him, do it. If he's not, just kind of like watch yourself is what I want to say. Like, put your anvils up first so that when he does declare his Supremacy, he's hitting the anvils, the things you want to take hits. Make sure your hammers are safe so that you can do damage back, is what I gotta say about this one. But besides that, he's got the Bionic Hive, the Infiltrator variant, and additional Neuroceptors, so that means he takes another mutation. And he has Suppressed Pain for a tactic. So, Bionic Hive and Infiltrator variant basically gives him Barrage, 8, 14-inch range, Rapid Volley, Deadly Shot, basically gives him a gun. And he's Volley 3, so he's actually pretty decent with that gun. And Deadly Shot and Rapid Volley on this thing is really good. Then he has Suppressed Pain, what means he gives out Bastion +1. He put the High Clone Executor in a unit of Bound Clones, and he gave it a gun so that as his Bound Clones are marching up the table, if anything's out of range and he's on a point, he can just shoot the officer off just to pop caps into people. Like, that was his idea. And he does do it at one point, but it was kind of like, okay, cool. You shot me. That's nice. I have a lot of horse flesh coming for you. Then he has an 8-stand unit of Bound Clones. They're under Superior Creation, so you get that +1 Clash and then Evasion 2. And they have an Assault Perceptor, yeah. This gives +1 attack to everyone in the front rank. Yeah, it's ranks, right? Yeah, the front rank. And then the command stand gets to reroll their attack rolls. So it's not bad. It's more, offensively orientated. And I believe he throws the High Clone Executor into this one specifically, because then he gives it Bastion +1. Because Bound Clones are defense 2, 3 to shield, 4 from the Bastion, and he just keeps activating them first so that he can, keep that defense 4 wall up. Then he has another 8-stand of Bound Clones, and they're the same thing, got the Superior Equations for that +1 Clash and Evasion 2. And then he has a Ward Preceptor, and this just gives them Bastion +1. So, or just Bastion, I don't think it is a +1, but just gives them Bastion so, they get that 4 defense as well. So he's got those 2 big blocks of 8 stands, and I gotta chew through them at some point. And I do get just basically stuck in combat with these things for I don't know, 3 to 4 turns of just being like, well, you have no cleave, I have no cleave, let's have fun. And then he's got a 6-block unit of Marksmen clones, and then a 4-block unit of Marksmen clones. Oh, Marksmen clones. Real good. You got that 22-inch arcing fire, you just shoot from far away, you can just basically walk onto the table and shoot right off the bat, or you can just walk up to the table and then like aim and shoot for the rest of the game. You are a medium, so you come on a little later than maybe you would like to, but also you can sit in back-end zones and score, and plus you have that super long range. So in this scenario, we played Maelstrom, but I think in other scenarios like Forlorn Hope, where the objectives are closer to the like your end of the table, 2 units of Marksman clones are fantastic. Just sit in those back-end zones and just shoot at people. I hate dealing with this unit, but I think it's really good. Then we got a Biomancer. He's got the Marksman variants that just gives him the Barrage 4 22-inch range gun. He's got Bend Flesh, which is heals, Biotic Renewal. Maybe that heals too. And you know, those different Biomancies. I'm not going to go super deep into these Biomancies because he uses the one with Deadly Shots and Deadly Blades, so that if I roll 6s on my defense rolls, it counts as 2 wounds, and he basically seeks to escort into the 6 block of Marksman clones because he's the same range, and he just draw events into that and gives them that Deadly Shots, and then just shoots with them. Like, that's his whole plan there. The thing is, I don't roll very many 6s when he shoots at me, and then I deal with them. So that's the Biomancer. And then in his unit, he's got a Force Grown Drones. They're just 3 stands running around. He's put a Standard Bearer on them so they go a little quicker. And then 5 stands of Incarnate Sentinels for that Cleave 2. No Superior Equations. I really think if you're running Incarnate Sentinels, you really want that Superior Equations to get to that Clash 3, Evasion 2. Like, it helps them survive so much more than what they what their base stat line is, because yeah, they're defense 4, but like Cleave 1, Cleave 2 especially, this is just going down. Anything higher than Cleave 2, they're like dead. That Evasion 1 isn't going to matter. And at Clash 2, they're not accurate enough to really support themselves with that Cleave 2, like to get that damage in. So you want to buff that Clash as high as possible, so that's why I'm kind of like, maybe you should have put the Superior Equations on the Incarnate Sentinels. Maybe you should have ran more Incarnate Sentinels. Incarnate Sentinels are just really good for Spires if you really want a big, like, punch, because they are Cleave 2. My opponent did get this wrong. I said there were 6 wounds, he said there were 5, so there was a point where I do clash and kill off the Incarnate Sentinels. And I was like, hey, I think their Incarnate Sentinels are 6 wounds. He's like, no, they're 5 attacks. There's 6 attacks, 5 wounds. I'm like, okay. And I didn't check it there, and maybe I should have, but like reviewing it now, like post game, it's kind of like, oh, hey, there's a number. They have 5 attacks, they have 6 wounds. So just rereading and reviewing your rules is always a good thing to do, because my opponent could have added in 60 more points at the top here. Could have just checked really quick. Oh no, it is 5 attacks, it is 6 wounds, because that's a couple extra health he would have had, and maybe he would have stuck around. Because he's got 5 of these things. It's like 5 wounds he's missing, so that was like a whole other Incarnate Sentinel he just gave up, basically. So, check your rules. Make sure you got it. With that, let's go slow roll his rules. You can pause the video at any time. And, yeah. Alright, that's his rules. Let's go look at the scenario. Here's the scenario today. It is Maelstrom, so it has 9-inch zone on the side, 6-inch zone in the middle, and 9-inch zone on the other side. This one has no kill points, so a lot of players like this, and the reason why I'm playing on this one is because in the scenario episode of the podcast, Mike and I don't like Maelstrom. And we don't like it for a couple different reasons, mostly because the points flip. It's 2 in the middle and then 2 on the sides at different points in the game. It's really uninspiring because it's just 3 zones in the middle. So it reminds me of like Incursion, what was 3 flags in the middle from War Machine. And it's just kind of boring. A lot of people are telling me, no man, it's a great scenario, it's great. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. And I was like, I'll play a game. Maybe my opinion will change upon it. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And it's like, you know, my opinions and views can change after doing different things, reviewing different stuff, looking at things differently, and playing or testing it differently. And like, maybe there's something I'm not getting. So let's talk about the scenario, then I'll talk about if my opinions change on this thing. So first off, in this scenario, objective zones can be seized and points scored from round 1. At the end of rounds 1 through 4 or 9 through 10, players gain VPs as following. Players gain 2 VPs for securing the 6-inch zone. Players gain 1 VP for securing the 9-inch zone. At the ends of round 5 through 8, players gain VPs as following. Players gain 1 VP for securing the 6-inch zone, and they gain 2 for securing the 9-inch zones. And then, end of turn 10. Because the scenario is in the middle, a lot of lists are not going to be getting there until about turn 3, as it is quite a distance and ways to go because you need to get a medium there. There are some factions that can get a medium there turn 1. I believe Wadroon can do it, but I don't know if 100k can do it. So let's see here, like the farthest 7, 14, 15, and then you're 24, you're 9, so 4.5. Do you just get to... I think you're half an inch away with Mounted Squires and a Noble Lord. Like it's half an inch. I'm just gonna do this little orange. I think you can't do it. My other thing is no, 16, no, you can't do it with Vanguard and Infantry unit. Like, yeah, I think you're half an inch out with 100k. Supposedly Nords can do it. Someone will have to show that one. I know Wadroon can do it, because they can go like 21 and like do a fluid reform to like get their character to go sideways and just end up like this to touch the zone. But a majority of lists are going to end up getting here on turn 3. So what you should really be doing and focusing on is the 2 9-inch zones, like this guy and this guy. Because if you get there on turn 3, you'll score 1 point, and if your opponent takes the middle, they're at 2, and now you're tied. Then you go to turn 4, and you hold the 9-inch zones, and your opponent holds the middle, and you go up, and you're tied again, so they go up by 2, you go up by 2 as well. And then at turn 5 through 8, it swaps. So now you're getting 4 points there too. So now you're winning by 2 points for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 turns. And then your opponent swaps back again to 9 and 10 turn, like turn 9 and turn 10 to you're getting 1 point and they're getting 2. Except if you still have control of those 9s on the side, you're still tying with them. So if you secure the 9s throughout the entire game, you win the game. Like, that's the objective. Like, that middle zone actually has no bearing on the game really at all. It's really all about securing those 2 side zones. And you'll see in the game, I really go for those 2 side zones to secure and lock them down to score those points. I don't mind that. Now playing on it, I like Maelstrom more than I used to. So I do see where the strategy is, but it's... Once you solve the puzzle quotes, what I've just explained, you kind of just bum rush the 9s. Like, just get in there, get into those 9s, and lock them down. Who gives a shit about the middle? Now the problem is if your opponent scores the middle, so let's say I'll be red here. So if I go in, score the middle, and my opponent's locked down the 9s, I will then just turn. Let's say 90 degrees. Let's say this is the easier side to get to because of terrain. And I will just swarm this side of the table. And I will lock down both zones. And then at that point, my opponent has to look at, well, I have this 9-inch zone uncontested. I have to leave someone there. I'm going to lose the 9-inch zone on the right side. I have to somehow get around terrain and into my opponent's 6-inch zone to start tying it up. So it kind of devolves into that. But if you've never really seen this scenario before, like, just go for those 9s, secure and lock down the 9s. You will win just because of how the math works out if you hold the 9s every turn. Besides that, terrain on this table and this scenario, it's very open for terrain, so I will give it props for that. You can literally just throw terrain wherever the fuck you want. Like, as I draw my pizza spaghetti. And I even throw terrain in the zone, so okay, there you go. So it's really nice for that, so it kind of gets actually a little bit more dynamic tables. And my stock towards Maelstrom has gone up since I ranked it in that scenario podcast. Because the last time I played Maelstrom was back at 1.15. I'm pretty sure this is the first time I played it in version 2. And I am liking it more, and I do appreciate I don't have to like farm kill points and stuff for this. Like, it's objective based, and that's kind of what I'm looking for from a scenario, is that it's fighting over those objectives. my opponent's like shooting at me with his Marksmen clones, and yeah, I run over and deal with him because I don't want to get shot at, but also I didn't have to. Like, if I was more on the back foot and thought that was a bad idea, I didn't have to worry about ever kind of going forward and coming off the zone because his mediums are just shooting at me, and it's like, okay, well, he kills me, I'm scoring points, but now he has to run over and get onto the zones, and he's all the way at the back end of his table. And he's over here. So he's got a long ways to go to run up to get into the zones if he's just shooting. Okay, with that, let's go see the table. Here's the table we played on today. I'm just going to circle the zones. That's the 9-inch. That's another 9-inch. And that's the 6-inch. So we got 2 hills. We'll just write an H. We got 2 hills there. We have 4 2-inch tall forests, what are obscuring, obstructing. So you can't see through them, but if someone's in there, you can shoot at them, but you're obscured. We got 2 water templates right there. I kind of like them being like near and around the zones, just because it's like, well, this is the thing we're fighting for. Let's put some terrain that's relevant to them. And the water on the right side does actually become relevant because I do get my Ashen Dawn stuck in it for a bit. So that's -1 clash. And finally, we have this massive obstruction right here that you can see. Like, I do at one point like cut it off. Think about there, because it's huge and there's people behind it. And I'm like, I also want to see my opponent's stuff as I play the game. For lanes, we got kind of a lane right here. We got a lane right here, except it is not blocked, but you got a bit of cover from like the different trees right here. You do have a lane right here, and the thing that kind of comes into this zone is this water feature. This forest here becomes relevant. Like, I use that to defend myself from shots a couple times. Over on the left side, we end up fighting in the fields between all the terrain. Like, it doesn't really get used. If you're wondering about this thing right here, I'll just circle blue. It's just there. I don't think we really go near it, but one of my opponent just threw it on the table. He's like, tentacle, and I'm like, all right, cool. But yeah, that's really it for our table, and the kind of like the relevant terrain. Like, we do go around that massive building right here, but it's kind of like, whatever. It's just a piece of terrain we got to go around. So with that, let's go check out turn 1. Here's turn 1, and I get only my mounted squires in, while my opponent only gets their force-grown drones in. Their biomancer, I'm just going to write a B, is right behind this tower, so he is on the table. And I think I tell him to go first. He draws his biomancer or whatever. I just run up the table here, as you can see, because I'm just like, well, I'm just going to go for the middle, because I'm kind of aiming for these guys to go kind of back in here, just in this area, because at some point he's going to bring out his Marksman clones, and I kind of want to deal with them as quickly as possible. I do mess this up a little bit, and you'll see in the next turns how, and I'll explain why more. But that's kind of the general idea, is like, okay, I'm going to run these guys forward, and I'm going to get them into that area over there so I can just charge and clash his Marksman clones. But I kind of get a little bit of cold feet because I'm like, I'll talk about more next turn. But his force-grown drones and his biomancer kind of come up the table here. They're both lights, I believe. So he's just kind of running them up, I guess, to be in the way, try and like secure the zone right here. And yeah, that's really it. It's not an amazing turn 1, but we're just kind of getting stuff out there and setting that line. So with that, let's go look at turn 2. Here's turn 2. And I automatically bring in my MSU of Household Knights, and I roll the 4 down to get my other unit of mounted squires. My opponent automatically brings in, I think, this unit of Marksmen clones right here. Just right there. So my opponent messed up a little bit and said this was his big block of 6, so he should have 2 more stands. And he tells me about it next turn, and I'm like, yeah, just throw the extra stands down. Like, I don't care too much. Basically, I'm just like, yeah, just do it. It's fine. And then he brings in the High Clone Executor with the Bound Clones over here. I think I go first, And I bring up my Household Knights, so they just kind of like run right here. And I'm just looking to get these guys in the zone right here. That's really all they're doing, and then when they get there, they can like force project, you know, that way or whatever. And that's really it for those guys. Then he brings on his... Does he bring on his bound? I think he brings on his bound and his high clone. He kind of does those character dead draws just to like bait me out some more. So he just brings them out. I then have my mounted squires run up. They're just looking to kill stuff. I forget if the force-grown drones actually really move up. I don't really think so. He hasn't seeked new escort yet, but he plans to do so at some point. And he didn't bring out his marksman clones. I know they shoot really far away, and I had my my mounted squires right here. And I'm kind of looking at it, and I'm like, do I want to run forward? Because if I run forward, I'm going to get attacked by like bound clones. I'm going to get attacked by all this other stuff. And I'm like, what if I try and preserve the mounted squires? So instead of moving into this forest, what I probably should have, like just moved up and sit in it, so that would have been half shots going in. I decided to go to the right here and just shimmy into this forest. He comes on out and just shoots me. Like he just marches once and then just, you know, like, takes a shot. And I believe he does 3 wounds, but you can kind of see right here I'm down to like 1 health. So I'm like, oh, that's really fun. But I'm super far away from him still, and I'm like, well, maybe if I was gonna get shot, I should have got shot in, I'll just circle the screen, like in this forest. That would have been better, because then I could have just shot out next turn and like got him. So that's really turn 2. It's kind of positioning. We're kind of looking at stuff. We're kind of like, where are we gonna go? And I think that was a mistake on my end, really, with those mounted squires, is that I should have just gone for it. I was more worried that he would have brought something out, they would have been charged, clashed, and killed, except I would have had a free turn because they would have just marched and they can't charge right away. Except he could have marched on the other unit of marksman clones and then shot at me anyway, so it's kind of like, And he probably would have done it anyway to clear up that unit of marksman clones. And it would be in his best interest anyway. So it's one of those, like, catch-22s, like, oh, do I lose the unit? Do I try and like, get something for it? Like, this unit's whole job with sitting in that middle in the forest is really just to tie up those marksman clones, and they're gonna die doing it. But if they do it, at least for a turn, I will be happy. So let's go look at turn 3 and see if they do it. Here's turn 3. I automatically bring in one of my unit of Ashendon, and I roll the 4 down to get my big bus of Household Knights in. My opponent gets his unit of, or his second unit of bound clones in right there. He gets his unit of, what is it, Sentinel Incarnate Sentinels, his weird rumbly boys in. And as you can see back here, he brought in like, he actually is like, no, I meant the big unit. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like, there it is. So things that happen first is, I believe, I go first, and from my, mounted squires, I know I'm going to get shot again, but I want to kind of get up there, and I want to stay safe, so I run them into the woods right here, just kind of burning my movement, and just kind of end up with all 3 stands touching the woods. And so I'm touching the woods, that's going to be half shots, and now I can see out of the woods into his marksman clones because I'm in it. And so next turn, I really just need to kind of like charge in there. And you can see that 2 of them are missing because he had his Biomancer from his Force-Grown drones, what we're about here. Seek new escort, there he is. And then put deadly shots onto the rest of the marksmen. The marksmen then sit still and aim, and they shot into the mounted squires at half their shots. And I think that last guy is down to 1 wound and he's broken. The standard bear's dead, so I have 1 wound, I'm broken, so next turn I got to rally myself and just go for the long bomb charge and hope I get it. I think I need to roll like a 3 or a 4, and really this marksman, or not this marksman, but this mounted squire has nothing else to live for except to tie up the marksmen's. And god damn it, he's gonna fucking do it. After that, his Force-Grown drones, they just kind of end up about here. As you can see from my other unit of mounted squires, I totally just went in for the side charge. got the Opportunist and just killed them. Opportunist allows you to re-roll your attack rolls while in the flank. Super nice. He then has his bound clones over here at the, what is it, High Clone Executor. He just kind of like shoots them with his gun. He's like, oh, I don't really feel like moving forward. And I'm like, okay, because I'm looking to score points to win. So this Household Knight unit is up the table, as you can see. And next turn, it's going to get within 4.5 of that zone. And I'm just going to sit on the very edge of it and just score it. And just, like, if Mounted Squires are dying, Mounted Squires are dying. I don't really care. And he's just shooting it with his bound clone, like the High Clone Executor with a gun. Like, I'm like, alright, you could work through that entire unit. I'm fine with that. But you need to get onto the zones to win. His other unit of bound clones kind of runs up in bastions. They're kind of not in the greatest place. Like, they can kind of swing this way where the Force-Grown Drones died, but their big problem is that this, building in the way, so they can't really go straight forward very well. And maybe he should have just ran them, like, right in front of the Marksmen clones here, so that he could have something in the middle to then swing left or right, and just kind of hold that way, and then or score the middle zone to start getting some points. Because that'll change up how I deploy stuff, because then it's like, okay, I got a big block over there, I got a big block over there, but I have enough hammers around that I can just deal with his stuff if I get them engaged with my anvils. So it's kind of that give or take, but he's basically put 2 anvils on the left side, and it's like, okay, you have no hammers over here. Your hammer is the Incarnate Sentinels that just ran up the table, and I counter deploy with my Ashen Dawn, and I'm like, alright, so I got Ashen Dawn who are going to fight Incarnate Sentinels. I got a unit of Household Knights who are currently scoring this zone right here. Well, next turn I'm just going to set up my Household Knights so that you kind of have to charge them, and then I'm going to have them rotated so that the Ashen Dawn can just kind of hit you and kill you. Because why wouldn't I? Like, come here. And that's really it for turn 3. So we're starting to get into those points where we're trying to outposition each other. We're starting to find weaknesses and faults in each other's lists and positioning. And over the next couple turns, you're probably going to see a cascade of small mistakes end up being bigger mistakes. So let's go look at turn 4. Here's turn 4. And things that happened. So I get 1 unit of Crimson Tower in, and I get 1 unit of Ashen Dawn in. So I have 1 unit of Crimson Tower that's still sitting in the back there. And he finally gets the rest of his list in with the last unit of Marksman clones. Things that go first, I believe I win the roll-off. And I have my last unit of Mounted Squires. He rallies, and he... what the hell does he do? I believe... Yeah, he makes the charge. So he goes... And then he ends up right there, and I engage the Marksmen. So I'm like, sweet! And my opponent goes, oh great, that's really fun. I'm like, yes, it is really fun. I hope you have a great time with this. And so he kind of looks at it and he goes, okay, cool. I think he might have activated the Biomancer next and put deadly shots onto the Marksman, because that was his plan the entire time, was to keep Biomancing deadly shots into the Marksman. I go, okay, cool. And then I activate my next unit of Mounted Squires that were hanging out over here. And they do I think they need like a 3+ and with a reroll, and I get it, and I end up like over here. So now I'm engaged with this unit of bound clones, and I do a little bit of damage, but like nothing crazy, because he might have activated them first to get that Bastion +4. I think he does do that, and he like moves them up the table a little bit. Like nothing too far either though, because he couldn't charge me. But anyway, I get into a fight with them, and his bound clones just kill me. Yeah, you can kind of see it in the back here. There's like this little red thing. Like, that's a bit of damage I did. Oh, and his stand's missing. Yeah, so I did hit them. But his bound clones just caught me back. Like, I'm defense 3, and there's only 3 of me, and he has like 1 billion attacks, and he has support 2. Like, he just kills them off. And then he brings up his other unit of bound clones, the High Clone Executor. They just kind of run up, and I'm like, alright, cool. I'm just going to talk with the left side because not a huge amount happens. Ashen Dawn just run up the table because I'm going to get that anvil in there at some point so that the hammer of the Household Knights can just kind of sit there and choose targets. And then I get just within 4.5 here to score that zone. so that I can get those points. Next thing he has go on, I believe he has the Marksmen clones that are engaged fight the mounted squire. They just like make an attack, like a clash. And I make all the saves, so he's alive. Like, he ended up with like 3 or 4 hits, and I made them all, and he was like, oh, god damn it. So, the mounted squire here, what's engaged with these marksman clones, is still alive. And then he has the other unit of marksman clones walk onto the table and just unload a billion shots into it. And it dies at that point, but like, I've stopped I've stopped both marksman clones from shooting anything else or getting further up the table for a turn. So that's really good for me. His Incarnate Sentinels, I'm just going to draw some stuff. So the way his Incarnate Sentinels die is that I have my Household Knights, and I rotate them and put them like so. Maybe not like that. Let's go a little better of a box. There we go. I kind of go like that. And so he has to do, I think he's like 8 inches away, and I'm giving him the charge because I really don't care about these Household Knights. Like, this is their whole job. And so he goes for it. And he can obviously see my Ashen Dawn or where they are, and he knows that it's going to be an auto win once I get there. And he just goes for it anyway, and I'm like, okay, cool. And so he just goes in, goes from the side, kills all the Household Knights, and then I immediately charge my Ashen Dawn into them as where they are. Now, 2 out of my 3 Ashen Dawn are in the water, so I'm -1 clash. But even with like Inspire going to 4, and then I just declare Bless because it's like, well, nothing else is going to hit them. I might as well just bless the attack rolls. And I just bless all the attack rolls with Cleave 2 and just wipe out the entire unit. And this is where them being, like, my opponent telling me they're wound 5, while I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're wound 6. And he's like, no, they're 5. They have 6 attacks. I'm like, okay. Like, maybe they would have survived a little longer because I believe I kill, like, 2 of them. 2 and a bit on the clash, and then the resolve kills the other 2, and it's a 5-stand unit, so that breaks and shatters them, and they just run off. And I'm like, all right, cool. So with those 5 extra health, that could have been, you know, maybe 2 stands are left, and you could have had that fight for a little bit more. Because I'm not in the zone right now, I'm just out of it. But he would have been broken, so he wouldn't have been scoring it either. But it's like, you know, he could have rallied, and if he reformed, maybe he could have survived a little longer. But them's the beans. Read your rules. Check your stats. What else happens here? Talked about all that stuff, and I just moved Crimson Towers right here. Now, the reason why these Crimson Towers are here is so that they can kind of basically threat project all of this. I'm looking to just tag this zone in the middle here, like the 6-inch as I move up. But really, I'm just kind of looking for them to just get into Marksman clones and just kind of kill them. But his Marksman clones are pretty far back, and I've stopped them from shooting me for a turn, so it's really bad for those guys. And I've taken his his Incarnate Sentinels, and now he doesn't really have much of a hammer left to really break through the armor of like the rest of the cavalry, because all the remaining cavalry on the table is defense 4 base, basically. Like Ashen Dawn defense 4 base, Crimson Tower, Household Knights are all defense through the shield. And I'm just going to make sure he doesn't side charge me because I really don't need that. And so he's going to be dealing with defense 4 for the rest of the game. Well, it's good for me, not for him though. So that's really turn, this is what? Yeah, this was turn 4. I scored 2 points over on the left there. Great. And my opponent hasn't scored anything because I've been keeping him off those zones. I've been killing anything he throws into them, and I'm just kind of forcing him to play on his side of the table because I'm just running horses at him. But let's go take a look at turn 5. Here's turn 5, and I go first, and I bring out my other unit of Crimson Towers. The idea with these Crimson Towers is that they're going to go score this zone right here after the Ashen Dawn move off that zone. But for now, they're just running at the table, so there you go. That's what they do at some point. But I'm going to start on the left side here. Ashen Dawn, as you can see, they went from there. They just charged into the bound clones. I believe I win the roll-off, so I just go for it. I get engaged. I had to do a march charge, and I just do a bunch of impact attacks, and I think I kill off a stand. And my opponent's kind of like, all right, I'm going to hit you back. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to bless off like 90% of this damage. He has Deadly Blades on his... Or is it Relentless Blows? He does whatever the one, if he rolls a 1, it's an automatic wound. So I'm like, okay, cool. And he rolls like one of them, so I just like take the 1. And I think that Household Knight's down to like 3 wounds, and it's like, alright, have fun. Like, it's Anvil versus Anvil time, we're gonna have fun now. His other unit of Bound clones, as you can see here, just kind of reforms. It's trying to get around, but he's like, I'm gonna charge you, and I'm like, well, you can't. You're gonna clip your own guy, and if you clip your own guy, your charge fails because you can't move through guys that are engaged. And he's like, oh, damn it. So he has to like reform, and he's looking. I reform my Household Knights because I want to charge into him. He has to do a march charge to get to me. I think he needs to like move 5, then roll like a 2 or something, or maybe a 6. A 6 is not a 6. He has to do like a 1 or a 2 to get to me. I basically need to roll a 2 to get to him. But the big thing is, I'm scoring that zone still, and that's really what I want. Next thing over here, what happens? He has his Marksmen clones. They're looking to shoot at my stuff, and I go, okay, cool. What's your range? He's like, 22 inches. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna measure 27.5 or 27.1, and I'm gonna sit just out of it. And I check to make sure I'm still in the zone here. Yeah, I'll use this color. There we go. And so I position myself like that. He's like, oh, okay, I'll put deadly shots onto my Marksman clones from the Biomancer. I'm like, oh, sweet. I'm gonna draw my Order of Crimson Tower card. He's like, okay, what you gonna do with them? Oh, I'm just gonna put them 27.1 away from you again. And he's like, oh, okay. And he looks at it and he goes, this isn't that great. I'm like, yep, it isn't that great. So I believe with this unit, the big 6 block unit, he goes and he marches his march, so it's 5, and then he's gonna volley. He's like, I'm gonna shoot the Ashen Dawn. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, I could shoot you from the side. I'm like, no, like check your front arc. See, that's the front. And then you gotta check your ranges. And then he's like, okay, so I got 1 stand in, and then another stand is blocked by the trees. Another stand is blocked by the trees. I think this stand's like either blocked or out of range, so he only gets a couple shots into me, and I think he only does 2 wounds. You can kind of see it right here. There we go. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. He's just like, my shots aren't doing that well. I'm like, yeah, no, they're not doing that well. Because I'm already on the zone. I don't have to move forward. I don't want to be shot for the entire game, so I am going to go and deal with him. But I have enough things that I can just kind of run forward, tie him up, still score the zones, and once I'm done killing off his marksman, I can just swing back and go, like, just spin 180 with a reform and just go back and score the zones. Because I have the durability with the defense 4 with all these guys, while he was shooting into, like, defense 3 dudes and doing really well. Now he's going to be shooting into defense 4 who have more wounds. Well, Ashen Dawn have more wounds. Crimson Towers don't. Fucking Crimson Towers. I love and hate you. I love your models. You're too expensive for what you do. But with that, I'm scoring both the side points at this time. That's 4 points for me. No one's scoring the middle. I don't really care about it. I'll get it if I can, but the sides are the things that are important for this game, and you can see that I'm focusing on those. So let's go look at turn 6. Here's turn 6. And my opponent goes and he starts off. I believe he wins the roll off, and he starts, and he has the Bound clones over here attack the Ashen Dawn. So I'm going to use a blue, and I'll use a red. Here's a red. There's an Ashen Dawn stand missing. It died. I believe I declare this as my supremacy phase, and he declares it as his supremacy phase, and I'm like, I'm gonna give hard 1 to all the Ashen Dawn, and he's like, okay, cool. And he goes and he just like stabs at me, and I go like, well, I'm hard 1, so your cleave doesn't matter on your High Clone Executor, and I'm just gonna bless off the majority of these, but you know, it's still a lot of attacks coming in, and I lose a stand. And as you can see, I hit back at some point, and I go, oh, there, you know, there's a stand over there gone, like, there's some wounds on these guys, like, you know, doing some work there. He then activates his next card. He has the Bound clones that are back here. They just do a march charge. I'll draw that in a little bit. There we go, that's a perfect square. He just does a march charge and gets into the Household Knights. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then finally, he has his Biomancer, who's now here. You can see he did a reform. I'll draw that a little better. There we go. Just give the Marksman deadly shots and deadly blades, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna activate my first card. He's like, all right, what is it? I'm like, I activate the Ashen Dawn, and I charge off of this scenario element right here. I just do a March charge, and I get into the side you can see right there, and I just kind of kill off, I think, a stand with impact attacks. And I'm like, sweet. Ties them up. And my opponent goes, well, this is great. And then he activates his next card, what I believe is this unit of Marksman clones. And they just shoot into the side of the Ashen Dawn. I really don't care. I just take the damage and sit there. I then have both my Crimson Tower, like both the Crimson Towers just run up, but they're still within 4.5 and 3 inches of the zone, as you can see. You know, they just ran up the table. Because I'm eyeing with the Crimson Tower that Marksman clone across from them, and that Marksman clone across from them, so that's just going to be hits. Get rid of those guys, and then I can start swinging stuff around, getting Ashen Dawn back onto zones, getting Crimson Tower back onto zones, getting a unit of Crimson Tower, probably like swing this way and deal with that, because now I have 2 anvils fighting, and it's going to be a slow kill for those. My Household Knights are fighting Bound clones. I believe they go last, and you know, they just do some damage here. I do kill off a stand back here, and that gives me just enough so we're tied, so no one is scoring that objective, but I'm scoring the 2 objectives on the middle, and ooh, that's a bad line here. It's still bad. I'm still scoring those 2 objectives, so I'm getting like 3 points, and I'm now kind of getting into all his Marksman clones, so they're gonna go down really fast. His Bound clones with this High Clone Executor is kind of the only thing that can really kill Ashen Dawn, so maybe he'll do it after a couple turns. But you're just going to see on the left side, like, just gridlock, and then the right side is just going to be cleaned up, and I'm just going to go back and score points. So let's just walk through all the different steps that happen there. I believe next turn is turn 7. If not, there's a counter, so like editing mass, we'll figure it out. Here's turn 7, and I believe he gets the roll off. He just hits me with his High Clone Executor and his Bound clones. Takes some wounds over there. I hit him back, dealing some wounds. Just watch out. I know this happened. He killed off a guy, but I know in the next couple turns it's like this guy is no longer contributing actual full attacks. He's contributing support at this point. So just watch out when you're like killing your opponent's stuff and they start leaving those front ranks, because it starts turning into support attacks instead of full clash attacks. So I do know that happens at one point in this game. I just want to be like a public service announcement, like, yeah, just watch out for that, because it does happen. Like, it's nothing on my opponent or anything, but it was like, oh hey, like, did you take the full attacks or the support attacks? And he was like holding his dice. It's like, no, and put some dice back. Like, but we're just having a game. It's fun. So he does that with his Bound clones. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll have my Ashen Dawn go because I have my X card. Because my Ashen Dawn had already been hit on the left here, I just make my Ashen Dawn on the right go. They just Inspire Clash and wipe out this entire unit of Marksman clones. I'm like, sweet. What's your next card? He goes, it's these Bound clones. They go and clash into my Household Knights. You know, kills a stand. And I think that one stand in the back there is down to 1 wound. I'm like, okay, cool. My next card is the Order of Crimson Tower. They just charge into these Marksman clones, kill them with the impact, and I just reform 180 so I can go back to the zone after. And those guys are dead. And I'm like, what's your next card? And he's like, I really got nothing. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I just burn through the rest of my deck. Household Knights hit the Bound clones, kill off enough stands so that they're broken. So I just kill off these back 3. That allows me to score that objective because I have more stands than he does, and he's broken, so he can contest, but he can no longer score. I then swing around this Ashen Dawn unit that used to be here. I just, you know, go 90 degrees basically. I just wheel march them all the way over there. But I'm still scoring the zone. I am now scoring this zone, and that's another 3 points for me. At some point these points swap, and I just don't really care. And my Ashen Dawn are just in a fight, so I believe this is the end of turn 7. Let's go look at turn 8. Here's turn 8. I believe my opponent wins the roll-off. They just have their High Clone Executor and Bound Clones immediately attack my Order of Crimson, or not Order of Crimson, but Order of Ashen Dawn. I have my Order of Ashen Dawn go. They immediately attack the Bound Clones. I kill some stuff in the back here. Then my opponent has his other Bound Clones go. There's still a stand right here. Hits me, kills off a guy you can see back here, and does some damage to that one stand. I hit him back, killing off 2 of his stands, so it's like, bloop, bloop. Now I'm super into this, break him again, because he just rallied and attacked. And I'm like, okay, cool. And, you know, as you can see here, I just run Crimson Towers over. Ashen Dawn just run over. Crimson Towers just run over. And I'm scoring like 5 to 4 points, depending on whatever turn the points swap at. I'll have to check it in editing because I totally forget. Maybe that's my big gripe with this scenario, is that I forget when the points turn, so it's like counting up points in the swap, you gotta track that, and I'm like, well, I just want to play the game. Like, I don't want to, like, if they were consistent, like if it was 1s on the 9s and 2s in the middle through the entire game, I'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever, fine. But because they swap, I'm kind of like, now I gotta remember what turn it is. I think it's turn 9 and 10 they swap again, so that 2 points go in the middle and the 1 points go on the sides, so it's just one of those things like you gotta keep track of, but it's extra work I don't want to do. There's my gripe. I think that's the actual gripe. There's my Maelstrom rant. But that's really it for this. He's just stuck in 2 anvils, and I'm gonna hit him with Crimson Tower next turn, and yeah, so let's go look at that. I believe that'll be turn 8. So yeah, I think this is turn 8. You can see here, he got to go first. Bound Clones hit Ashen Dawn. I then have Crimson Towers go, hit Bound Clones, kill them all. Ashen Dawn is just left with like 1 and they're broken, but I don't really care. And then he has his other unit of Bound Clones. I think they attack the Household Knights, but don't really get anywhere. Like, he does a couple damage, but I don't lose that stand, and then I just kill him off, and it's called at that point. Because he's tabled, I control all 3 objectives, and that's the game. So, whatever turn it is, that's the game. I think we'll find out when I swap it, because I think these do swap. But whatever. Like, I'm just going to let the editor, who is me, in the future, deal with it. Let's go look at the score. So it's turn 9, and my opponent scored 0 because he was never on any objectives and never secured anything, and I'm at 21. I kind of like the scenario. I have my gripes with it because I can't remember when it swaps, and I always got to go back and check it. While if I read the scenario pack and it says the 6-inch zone, you score 2 points. The 9-inch zones, you score 1 point. And it's like that the entire game. Then I know what I'm going for and I know what I'm doing. But because they swap, I then got to remember what turns they swap at. And there's a lot of times with wargaming that people are like, what turn are we at? I'm like, okay, well, we did this turn 1. We did that turn 2. We did that turn 3. Okay, it's turn 4. And they're like, oh, okay. So that's kind of like my issue with Maelstrom, I guess, is that it's extra paperwork and tracking that I don't really want to do because I have to play the rest of the game, and it's something that no other scenario in the game does. So maybe I would feel better with it if it was just like flat points across, but then it gets into another problem of like it's very uninspiring, it's very simple, and sometimes simple stuff is really good. I want to say it's more like it's basic. Maelstrom, you're the basic bitch of scenarios. Go get your pumpkin spice latte. I do like it more now that I've played on it again. I brought a very fast list to contest, to score, to get in the way of my opponent, and really tie down and wrap up whatever they're doing. I'm liking the horses a lot, actually. Like, I don't know, they're kind of like growing on me. And by growing, I mean like Ashen Dawn, Household Knights, Mounted Squires are really growing on me. Crimson Tower stock is kind of going up because I've been using the Ashen Dawn really effectively. Just here's the anvil and Crimson Tower is going to hit from the side. But I've had a lot of times in the past where Crimson Towers just like failed, if you get it. Like, their clash is 3, and they're impacting on 3 with their brutal impact 2. They only do 4 impact attacks, and They only are in Clash 3, so theoretically with an MSU, you're only going to be hitting like six hits. So it's not really that effective. And then they're like attack 5 on Clash 4 because of Inspire, but sometimes you got a March Charge. So it's just. Also, they're like 200 fucking points for whatever they're doing, and they're not doing enough, and they're like 4 wounds. It's just like the Household Knight buff bust just does better, and for cheaper. It's just funny. Things I gotta say about my opponent's list. Just review your lists after updates. Like, just go back and check them to make sure they're you get your full points, because my opponent was playing 60 points, or 60 or 40. 60. I think they were playing 60 points down. So just go back and check it, make sure like, hey, you have all your stuff, because that could have been extra stand or two, what could have helped out, especially in those bound, because they're just anvils. Like, you saw them. It was like 5 fucking turns of me just sitting there and we're stabbing at each other. But with this one, I think he should have put a unit of bound over with the Incarnate Sentinels and hammer and anviled with the bound and the Incarnates. I think he should have looked at putting superior creations on the Incarnate Sentinels and maybe running more while reducing the bound to just be anvils and having the Incarnate Sentinels with superior creations be those mean, nasty hammers you want. Being supported by Marksmen clones would have been really nice. So like, it's kind of like a total list shift for what you're trying to do, but it's working with the strengths of what you have. Like, the Incarnate Sentinels will hit hard and kill stuff if they're at that Clash 3. The bound clones will take a hit because for some goddamn reason they have like evasion 2 or something. I think they have evasion 2 base. Maybe they have evasion 1, but anyway, like, they have evasion for some goddamn reason. So they can survive a little bit, but they'll be wiped out. I think it was Vanguard clone, not Vanguard clone infiltrators. I think it was Vanguard clones, what were just like evasion 2 base, and it was just like, what the fuck is up with these things? So yeah, it's just like, god damn it. Marksmen's do really well, but I didn't mind his 2 bricks of it. Maybe he should have split it like 5 and 5, but I can see why he wanted 6, especially with like that whole back end table edge that he can just spread out wide, put deadly shots on more people. So maybe he should do on 3 and like 7. Just, actually no, fuck it. You should just go 10 wide, just shove more Marksman clones into that one unit with the Biomancer and just deadly shot. Be like, here, die. Just rain death upon people. Oh my god, that'd be funny. Maybe that's a thing. Like, I'm going over his list and stuff because I'm like, man, there's a couple things here I feel like you could play around with. Spires is weird, and I don't fully understand Spires. Whenever a Spires player is just like, yeah, I just do this thing because of draw event, because of bioman, I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, like, whatever. I'm still just gonna move around my guys and slam into you, so unless you're stopping that, I don't really care. But Spires are also really flimsy on paper. They have a couple tanky things, like the Incarnate Sentinels can be tanky. I think, what is it? The Centaur Avatar can be tanky. The Lineage High, like, not the Lineage Highborn's the character. The Lineage Avatara? Whatever. The big tall skeleton guys, the big sticks and like the glaives, and they just stab at you. I think those guys are, can kind of be a bit tanky. But when my opponent deployed, he put 2 anvils on one side and a hammer on the other side, and I took advantage of getting into an anvil fight and then waiting for the rest of my stuff to swing around. And then I took advantage of baiting out the hammer to then hit it with Ashen Dawn, will just kill it. So, and then I think I did pretty good stalling and dealing with the Marksmen by just throw Mountain Squires at it. I think for myself, my big mistake was that I could have moved my Mounted Squires up into that smaller forest, took a load of shooting, been closer, and then next turn just charged him if I won the roll off right away to like kill Marksman clones or get into combat with Marksman clones, because I would have had a free turn to just do damage. And if I won the roll off again on the next turn, I could have activated that unit and done more damage, what would have really hindered and hurt the Marksman. So I think that was kind of my big mistake, but the rest of it, I feel my play was right. Like, when my opponent killed the Marksman and was like, are you going to move forward? And I'm checking zones and I'm just putting my stuff just in the zone but outside of their like arch shoot. I'm like, yeah, that's as close as I'm getting, like 27.1. And I confirmed with my opponent, hey, this is my intent if the table gets moved or whatever. Do you agree with this? And they're like, yeah. It's like, okay, cool, thank you. it's really just having that talk with your opponent as well. It's like, hey, I plan to do this to stop you from just shooting me, or like doing a walk and shoot. And he's like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. And it was fine because it's just you're having that conversation with your opponent. Overall, I had a good game. Thank you to my opponent for playing. What else is there? BonkTable, we got a podcast. We recently did an interview with the winners of Gen Con. Check that out. It's really good. They're really funny guys. Tyler and Carl. If they win more events, I'll gladly bring them back on. Especially Carl. That guy has to keep winning second. If he wins first, I can't interview him because he's too good for me now. BonkTable has a Discord. You should check it out in the description below. You can join and you can chat if you want to ask me specific questions, or you want to go into the BonkTable content channel and then complain about whatever I played. Because for some, it's not like people are complaining, but people ask like more detailed questions about what's going on, what was happening at this step. And I'm like, okay, well here, this is like more detail what was going in, because maybe I don't think about stuff until I get asked those questions. But overall, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. Bye.